I've always been an extreme sports person. So you name it, my parents told me, no, I'm in. I'm doing it. Started out quite early with skateboarding, and then it just morphed into things that were more dangerous. And you know, it was during the service where my command master chief called me in and he said, hey, if you keep doing this stuff, you're gonna break yourself. And if you do, you're paying for it. The command's not paying for it. I'm like, okay. And about 3 months later, I broke my shoulder snowboarding, which the command paid for. So I'm super grateful. I'm actually terrified when I jump off of mountains and when I fly wingsuits and I do crazy stuff. But it's the point of like proving to myself that I can actually do it.
So in your own words, what is adversity and what's your philosophy on it?
So I had to look up the definition of adversity. Tells you a little bit about my academics. Adversity is life. There's some adversity that we create ourselves, and then there's adversity that's put on us as a whole. How do we deal with that? And none of us knew what to do. And so that catapulted me into the military. I did my deployments, I got out. In 2019, I got a phone call that my sniper partner took his life. And it was the hardest thing that I've ever had to deal with. When David took his life, my sniper partner, I decided to come up with a thesis as, was it just brain related or was there more at play? And what I thought was, if I look at the number of veterans, which I think it was Boston University, did a study in 2021 that said that there are roughly 7,500 veterans post 9/11 that have been killed in combat or training. That's 7,500. And then post 9/11, there have been over 30,000 that have taken their life. So you look at that number, and then it becomes a reality, because it is a reality. I've lived through 10 of them. When people are in a dark place, it's usually because they're taking a visual to a dark place. Like when I think about somebody being hurt or killed, I don't want to think about that scenario of the last breath or the last moment that when they got blown up or whatever it was. I want to think about them on the dance floor in training, making a complete butthead of themselves, capturing it on footage, and showing the whole command for months on end. And that's how I try to take these environments and what I try to explain to them. So if they're talking about something deep, I'll say, okay, cool, you're having trouble thinking about this particular friend that's struggling right now or who died. Tell me a good story about him. Share that with me, because I don't know that story. And immediately take their mind to somewhere else.
That's a great power of reframe and perspective. I love that. How do you deal with failure?
Well, I'm an expert in this field, so. I used to look at things and get discouraged. You know, whether something didn't work out, I put a plan together, it didn't happen. But it became so constant because getting out of the service, I had no degree. I didn't really understand business. I knew nobody in Texas, and it was very difficult. So I listened. I had a board or an advisory group of just a few men in town that didn't want to be a part of a board or any of that stuff, but they wanted to meet with me and help me explore opportunity. And so I listened to them, and they would give me this sound advice, and I would action it. And then they were surprised when I used it. And I'm like, why are you guys surprised? They're like, well, we didn't really think you'd do it. I'm like, but you're giving me the answers here. And so that started to build the business to where I started to get confidence in what I was doing, but I would always revert back to my mentors and ask them questions. I'm a continual learner, I'm a continual student. I don't ever stop learning, and I don't think I know anything. In fact, the older I get, I feel like I know less.
Looking back, talk about a time when you felt overwhelmed by adversity, and how did you deal with it then?
I was in Iraq doing the job. 3 months into the deployment, we were coming back from a mission, and I remember hearing crash bangs go out. And so I knew that we were about to get into something, and before we could even get into it, our Hummer exploded. And it blew me out of the turret into the sky. That's how I get my nickname Birdman, is because I went flying. You don't get a cool nickname unless you're truly a warrior. I was not, so I got Birdman. That's what it is. But ultimately, I went from being proud of what I do and thought I was pretty hardcore and all that to completely helpless in an instant. And so the muscle memory of the training kicks in. That's what we do. We train, we train, we train. And it's more than that, though. It's this connectedness, this love for each other. Like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do everything in my power to make sure they return because I care about them, even though they've been driving me into the ground for the last 18 months. We're going to return home together. Just asking us if we're okay is not enough. It's not anything. And you can't expect people to go that hard for that long without having trauma. On a more personal level, David never believed in cell phones. I wish that I could have called him. Even though I'm not a savior and I couldn't have fixed his issue by talking to him, I could have tried. That's something that I think about all the time. We have to continually stay on top of each other. We have to look at how many people are in our circle and who's looking after them. And it takes one person to do that. Because if you do it enough, we'll be like, that's pretty cool, I'm gonna do that. And it starts to create that spiderweb effect. It's again going back to pushing ego aside and saying, hey, are you okay?
With a recent adversity, anything that you've kind of faced lately, how do you deal with it now? How does it make you feel? Do you have a different skill set?
Well, I mean, I'm a parent of a 6-year-old and a 3-year-old, so I'm working on it now. That's a full factory reset. This has been very difficult. I thought my training would work, keep calm and patient. I was a sniper, so we like to sit around a lot and just stare. Doesn't work with children, so I'm really, really out of my element there. Breathing is a really good one to work on. But I mean, I just look at the blessing that I have to be here. You know, I shouldn't be here. IEDs are designed to kill us, and I'm still here. So my mission is now, how do I help others?